Hello survivors and welcome to A Moment of Relief. First Aid Spray's sub-series where we get together for a bit of a chat about hot topics, musings and anything else that may not fit into our main show. For today I am your host KDB and I'm joined by two of my Fast Fam members. Introducing first is none other than James, aka Moist Owlet.
That's me, Fast Fam number one.
And everyone's apparently everyone's favourite member, despite what James and I would say in
We're
for
trying
ourselves.
to disparage these remarks, yeah.
Everyone's favourite Fast Fan member is Mr. Steve Valance.
Hi everybody, I refute those claims. I can be a right pain in the high.
Yes, lovely to be with you both on this fine Sunday. Well, I've just dated the episode now, so he's not going to like that.
But when? Which Sunday? When?
Who knows? Could be 2025. I don't actually know when this is coming out. I guess soonish. But anyway, yes, it is a moment of relief, our relaxed chat show. And today, it's Game Awards and Game of the Year season. So we thought we'd have a bit of a gum flapping session on some of our gaming and specifically horror gaming highlights of the year. For those who are unaware, Steve and I, we both represent First Aid Spray in the independent awards show, the Horror Game Awards, which is now in its third year. And for that, Steve and I cast our votes across a range of categories. And it kind of got our juices flowing last week when we were doing the voting. And so we thought we wanted to get together and have an opportunity to talk about maybe some of the games that may or may not be spotlighted, but just generally games throughout the year that we've enjoyed playing and what our highlights were. And we've roped James in as well to just kind of have a chat about gaming moments of 2024 with a horror slant. So that's what we're going to do. But before we get to that topic, which is going to be the main topic, something that's a bit adjacent to all this, being a Resident Evil podcast, we wanted to touch on that for a little bit because 2024, gentlemen, was the first year since 2019 that we have not had a new game in the franchise released, or a new TV show or movie, I think. We had a graphic novel, but the less said about that, the better, which we did do a podcast on. Go and check it out if you must. Steve, how are you feeling about the lack of RE, and have you been back to any of the other games to revisit in 2024 to fill the void?
You mean to tell me you haven't taken up on the mobile phone ports, the cloud gen parts of the Remake 2 and RE4? Honestly, my Resident Evil appreciation this year has been, outside of fast-related stuff, playing basically the GOG ports, which aren't like remasters or anything flashy. They are just the old PC versions wrapped up on new systems. Other than that, I've done my ritual of yearly run-through of RE2, and it's been great. But yeah, it's been strange. Like you said, there's been not anything. It's not. Since RE7 kind of its DLC wrapped, we've almost known what the next Resident Evil project would be before it happened. Like, I feel like we knew about RE3 Remake just as Village was, like, on the cusp of being here. Or is it the other way around? You know what I'm saying? We knew what was coming just before it arrived. And now we've been flying blind with, I don't want to say mediocre stopgap stuff, but it's basically, without fan content and fan-generated stuff, there's not really been much for a Resident Evil fan in terms of new. Strange.
It is strange because, it was 5 solid years of stuff being thrown at us, good, bad, sort of all over the place, but also, like you say, knowing what's coming. And although we know another game is coming, that is it. We just don't know anything else about it. James, what about you? Have you been back to any other RE in 2024?
Yeah, I have. I played some Village recently, which was really nice to get back into, especially since I went back into it on GeForce Now with everything turned up. And last time I played this game, we had the lag flies. If anybody knows lag flies.
Yeah.
And I was speedrunning it when lag flies were there. It wasn't just flies, it was when the lichens would get up in your face and stuff. So it was really lovely.
Those cheeky lichens and their decapitated headshots slowing the game down.
Yeah. It was all the particles, wasn't it? It was like the blood and everything. Like it was just, yeah. It was for some reason the DRM hated it. Yeah, but so it was nice to get back into it and see everything just in like full, as how it was meant to be. You know how they envisaged it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, because when I played it, like blades of grass just looked like PNG images. You know. It was awful. I was saying to Sai when I was playing it on this streaming in the Discord that you know the first section with Ethan when you're going through the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
The most clear point that I knew that I'm in for a treat here is when I was playing it back in whenever the game came out. That darkness that you would see around you came in stages. Right, so like there would be like one transition to one like shade of dark to black, and then another transition to another. It was awful, right? But when I played it this time around, everything was very silky smooth and lovely.
Nice.
So that was really nice. Yeah, and I played Revelations, and I changed my mind about that game. Like I remember not being like I didn't really care about it. You know, it was like yeah, but now I actually really love Revelations. Especially because the podcast we did recently about it, that's what I did. But I put a lot of time into this game, and yeah, it really changed my mind, which I appreciated.
Yes, everyone should go and listen to that Revelations episode. I personally really like Revelations. Like I think when on that episode when you were all talking about it, I basically agreed with everything because I know that it's not an incredible game, but I think it's just something about the fact for me, because it just throws right back to the original with Jill and Chris, with like a mansion-like setting and all the backtracking. I absolutely love Revelations. So if anyone listening to this has not listened to our episode on it yet, please do go and check it out. It's funny you mentioned Village as well, because I've had that game on my mind loads recently. And I think it's because it's one of those things with this time of year. I have this with Skyrim as well. As soon as it starts to get cold and dark, there's games that I want to replay. And Village, for some reason, has just been like creeping into my mind. And because I haven't played that for, well, I guess since the DLC came out. So enough time has passed where I think that itch is back for me to want to play it. And because it's that cold setting and dark setting, I think it's perfect to play it this time of the year.
It's cozy in a scary way.
Yes, 100%.
Reassuringly terrifying.
Yeah.
So I think I'm definitely going to play that again over like Christmas and stuff. But in 2024, I have played Resident Evil 3 Nemesis again because we're doing an episode on that soon. Spoiler alert. Which has been a lovely time, and I'm looking forward to diving into that more on the main show. It's weird because I actually played it a bit earlier in the year, and then I realised we were doing an episode on it, and I jumped on it, and that's a game that sort of I've got a lengthy relationship with of back and forthness. So I'm looking forward to talking about it on the main show. But Resident Evil is evergreen as always. We're just excited and interested about what's to come in the future. Yeah, go on, James.
I put a note like that. It's felt. I was trying to think of a word to describe the past couple of years.
Yeah.
After it's not been a couple of years. It feels like 10 years since I had anything, but it's felt isolating to me.
Yeah,
like it's felt like Capcom have kind of, and I understand why. We've got a really big game coming up from them. That the last one they did won Game of the Year, and it is one of their biggest franchises, which is Monster Hunter. So I understand why, but it has felt very isolating. But to give you an idea, with their history, like I think Monster Hunter World came out in 2016, and then 2017 we got RE7. So we might be looking at maybe a repeat of that.
Yeah,
where we get next year might be our Monster Hunter Wilds year, and then the year after that will be our Resident Evil year, and then years following that. Yeah.
I think just before we move on, Steve, you might be able to remind me of this. Did the VR version of RE4 come out this year, or am I imagining that? So I was thinking about releases, and I think actually maybe that counts as a release. But even though, the remake, because they brought out the RE4 remake, I'm wondering if that was this year. I might have my dates confused.
because I'm not that much of a VR head, I really am going to just have to hand in my fake fan card and say I just genuinely don't know.
Yeah, exposed right now. I was just, as we were talking, I was like, I wonder, did that come out this year? Either way, yeah, I didn't really play VR either, but apparently it's really good. It's a really fun way to play that remake. Cool. Okay, well, moving on from Resident Evil to a more broad chat about games. Steve, talk to me about 2024. Has there been anything you've played this year that has really struck a chord with you, and whether that's entire games or just gaming moments? And this could be horror focused or otherwise, kind of wherever you want to take it, really. Let us know what's been tickling your horror fancy this year.
Okay, right. Horror games have been having, I would say, an absolutely a fantastic year, a banger year, if you will. If we're including just straight up from PC to console ports, we've had Elisa and System Shock. One more of a basically just a pared down version of the PC version put onto console, but generally speaking, pretty solid. Survival horror in general, indie survival horror specifically, I'm addressing that directly in the room. Has been coming out swinging this year. We've had, like previously mentioned, Elisa. We've had Crow Country, which is fantastic. We've had Hollow Body, which is fantastic. We've had Conscript, which is fantastic. It's and these are all very, very small teams, if not 1 to 2 people team making these games. And the fact that they can reach not quite the complexity and depth of, say, a 90s Resident Evil, but still capture that magic well enough and be a enjoyable, playable experience. Hitting all the mechanical notes. Combat doesn't have to be fantastic, just aim, shoot, dodge, fight monsters, pick up notes. It's nice that indie horror has got away from just basically riffing on Amnesia, is what I'm saying. If for a while it was stuck in a rut of samey, I don't use the term walking simulators or walking away from the monster simulators, but it kind of felt like that, and moving away from it. And yeah, I like this. Whereas indie games were making nothing but Metroidvanias, now they're making survival horror games, so they're just catering for me. Other than that, I mean, it's been still pretty solid in the AAA space. Obviously, someone's going to get mad if we don't mention it. Silent Hill 2 came out, and it turned out that me, a skeptic of Bloober Team, it wasn't actually complete toilet. It was pretty well made, pretty well done. And as a result, the Silent Hill community at large is divided, because some want to be upset at the fact that it's not made by purely Team Silent people, and others are happy that they've just got a good game in the franchise again. Me, I'm on the second half. I'm just happy that they nailed it and it worked. Kind of sucks it's only on one console right now. I think that's a bit shady business, and that's unfortunate, but that will be resolved in the coming year. After that, I haven't really played Hellblade 2, Kale, so I'd have to ask you what that's like.
Oh, that's not on my list of stuff to talk about, but I can mention it in a bit.
Fair play. But yeah, banger year all round.
It definitely has, and you mentioned a couple that I've played and loved this year. So this has been a funny year because some people may or may not know, I set myself a bit of a mission at the start of the year, and that was to finish as many games as possible this year. And if I think on average, it's probably around I'll always play lots of games, but in terms of finishing them, I might finish 10 to 15 games or something like that, maybe 20 on a busy year. This year I'm currently at 48, which I'm pretty pleased with. Oof. And there are a lot of indies in there. And I've definitely played more than 48 because, I'll just jump into games and play for a few hours and never finish them or whatever. But in terms of ones I've finished, there's 48 of them, and there's quite a few horror games in there. Some of my highlights for 2024, if you'll indulge me just for a moment, I'm going to start with a controversial one, and that is the Alone in the Dark remake. Now,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so this game, so a lot of people did, I think. Rightly or wrongly. When it came out, the reviews were absolutely wild. Some of them were quite good, but then some people absolutely slated it. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I always call out VGC because they criticised this game for the fact that you had to read files to find the solutions to puzzles. That is not hyperbole. That's not an exaggeration. Go and read the review. Alone in the Dark is so it's kind of like a reimagining of of the original, and I really enjoyed it. It's not like incredible gameplay. It's like a solid, you know, I don't want to say like a solid B- or something like that. I struggle to grade things sometimes, but I had so much fun with the atmosphere and what they were really trying to do with the story and the two characters and the different endings. It was a game that is not very long. I think maybe it's about 10 hours on your first playthrough and then a lot quicker on subsequent playthroughs. But it was one of those games that I played and then instantly started to play again to try and find some of the stuff that I'd missed and get other endings and stuff like that. But in terms of like the criticisms, I just kind of found it a bit weird. The game has two modes as well. It has a classic mode and a modern mode. And one of the biggest differences between these are the classic mode is if you're reading a file, you read the file and the solution will be in that file, and then you've got to pick it out and go and solve the puzzle. If you do modern mode, it highlights the solution to the puzzle in the file. So it basically makes it a bit easier for you. Whereas classic mode's a bit more, rugged survival horror from the old days where you actually had to read things and explore for yourself. So I didn't mind that. That wasn't like a negative as far as I was concerned. More of it, that's what I want. The combat in that game was quite simple and it was heavily criticised. And then ironically, Silent Hill 2, the combat in that, which I've not played it, but it looks basically identical to Alone in the Dark, and apparently that's a game of the year. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but
not to jump down you a bit there, Kels, but having played both of these games, one has, admittedly, at times it feels a bit counterintuitive that James Sunderland is ducking and weaving and smacking things with pipes or balsa wood. Like he's a little bit more agile and a bit more adept in the environment than Edward Carnby.
That's good to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I think being reminded of Alone in the Dark, it had great aesthetics, a great setting. The thing that let it down for me, and I think the reason why it kind of went back at the back of my mind, is the combat really does let it down. If it had found a way to resolve that and make it a bit more satisfying, because perspective-wise, it looks like you're playing basically a modern Resident Evil game, third-person shooter, with obviously, what's his name? Not Halper, that's the character in Stranger Things. David Harbour and Jodie Comer doing stuff. And the story is interesting, it's strange, it's bizarre in a fun way, otherworldly, instead of using the word Lovecraftian over and over again.
I think the story and the atmosphere do the game so many favours. Like, you're not wrong about the combat, but also there isn't a great deal of combat scenarios in the game as well. I think,
True.
There's some in there because it's a video game, but, I didn't mind it too much. But I wanted to, like I say, kind of controversially shout out Alone in the Dark because I did really like it and I played it multiple times. I don't think it's as bad as the kind of reputation it got, which is a shame. A couple more. Another one is Still Wakes the Deep. We're talking about walking simulators, which is, for me, this is the walking simulator of the year for me. It's, again, very, story-driven atmosphere, minimal to no combat. But I was fine with it. I like the thing that I can just snuggle up with in the evenings and soak up the story. Absolutely phenomenal performances and character writing in that game. Just kind of wanted a bit more gameplay, but I really loved that. And then last but not least of my big highlights, Steve has mentioned it, is Crow Country, which for me, this was the one that I think, if I say when it's all said and done, this is probably my horror game of the year.
Same.
It's what I voted for in the Horror Game Awards anyway. It is, for those that don't know, it's a little indie game like Steve mentioned. It's Trumpton meets Resident Evil and Silent Hill. So it's like a throwback to a PS1 game with a slightly isometric style. I thought it was clever and stylish and funny. It did similar things that Signalis did in terms of ticking the boxes of something that I want from a kind of throwback survival horror game. It's far more tongue-in-cheek than Signalis, and maybe a bit sort of more fun and tongue-in-cheek than I would have liked. I would have liked it to lean a bit more into the horror, but that's kind of just like a preference thing. When it came out and I finished it, I remember on one of my other shows calling it Baby's First Survival Horror, which sounds like, that sounds like a big criticism. I'm trying to play it down. That's not what I mean. It's just, I think it is a really great access point to survival horror. And the more I think about that game, the more I love it. So have to give a big shout out to Crow Country. And yeah, I also replayed Alan Wake about 10 times and loved the DLCs for Alan Wake 2. And I'm currently replaying Alan Wake 2. And yeah, that's my highlights for 2024.
You mentioned Crow Country, and that's like, what a game. Like,
yeah.
Playmobil Survival Horror, where's the merch? Where are the toys?
Playmobil, yeah, perfect.
And I love that. I'm not going to spoil the game, everybody, but basically it's one of those games where you think you can see all the twists coming, and the final twist is actually one that you go, oh my god, this changes everything. And it's just a fantastic, fun little story. And yeah, I agree with Kels. If it is baby's first survival horror, you know, it's finally good they can have one that's themed for kids that isn't just screaming robots in a pizzeria.
Yes. James, take it away. Any highlights for 2024? Have you played anything that Steve and I have been chatting about, or have you got your own experiences?
No. Yeah, I haven't played any. I haven't played Crow Country. The thing is, all these games have got something very, very familiar about them, haven't they? Like they're retro, they're OG. They're very familiar in that sense. Other than like Alone in the Dark and Silent Hill 2. Which I've not had the chance to play either of them. And I don't get along with these games, like the older games, but I really like watching people play them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do have some new entries, though, that probably not a lot of people have played. Actually, a lot of people have played, but not a part of the survival horror community. Mm-hmm. This is just off the top of my mind. A couple of days ago, a small game came out. You might have heard of it, called Path of Exile 2.
Oh, yeah.
Where I won't go too deep into this because this just came at the top of my head, but I just want to describe the beginning of this game. The way you choose your character at the beginning of this game, there are 6, I think, classes, and you're all in the gallows with the noose around your neck. And you have to choose your character, and when you choose your character and accept it and confirm it, all the other classes get hung, and your noose breaks, and you have to escape. Then you get washed up on a beach. There's a stranded guy who's dying, and he tells you about kind of the basic kind of exposition of the area. And then this body that seemed to be dead next to him crawls up to him and just starts to maul his neck. And then you start stabbing that body to death.
Fabulous.
Bit of a busy Sunday afternoon.
So yeah, that's pretty horror to me. The game it's got a lot of dark, gritty horror like that, grimy stuff. But yeah, I won't go too deep into that because that's another thing. But yeah, you two will be happy to know, and Steve knows this, but at the beginning of the year, I started my year by playing Signalis. Because Steve got it for me for my birthday, and I picked it up, but I still haven't completed it. But I got quite far, I think. I won't say actually. I got to a certain point, and I got a little bit further, and then I got distracted with other games and shiny things.
So I'll spoil things for everybody because I'm a mean spoiler person. Spoilers for Signalis, everybody. James, did you get to any of the endings yet?
Oh yes, I got to one of them.
Okay, right. That's all you're getting. Don't worry, everybody. I'm not. The game has an ending. There you go.
It has an ending. But yeah, I want to go out. I want to go a bit. Oh, actually, before I do this, I want to give a quick kind of mention to a game I put a lot of hours into this year. And it is very scary and has very cool horror moments in it. And it also has a spider in it. And, spiders are great. We love spiders. For some reason, Capcom hates them. But it's a big MMO, and it's called Once Human. And I've been describing it as if Silent Hill and like an MMO of some renown, and like with its own kind of spin like on it. There's the one thing that's always stuck in my mind with this game is hospitals are great. It's a great theme to put like a scary moment in. And as you're going through this hospital, you're constantly hearing voices in the back of your mind as you're going through this hospital. and and then you'll hear chittering behind you, and nothing will be there. Yeah, and you steadily get into more and more into this hospital until you finally get to the end, and it's getting more and more infested with these purple like egg things. You don't see any webs because they're phantom webs that you see later on, and then you have to face this god almighty spider on the top of a hospital roof, which is fast as heck. Isn't like a big lumbering thing. It's exactly how you would expect a horror spider to be. And it's a big world boss and you have to kill it. And yeah, that's just one moment. There are a lot of very scary moments. Like I remember when I first played it, I like built my base. I came out of my base. I started just exploring, and a mass of gigantic, and I'm talking like each one of these was about 100-foot long tentacles coming out of the sky. One picked me up and just killed me. And there were numerous of them, and it was like, it was great. There was a great atmosphere in that game. It has a lot of like cool little nods to a lot of survival horror as well, with its note taking and having to read puzzles and stuff. So yeah, there's a little kind of nod towards Once Human. Other than that, though, I've not had a huge amount of experience with survival horror this year because there hasn't been a lot that has really caught my eye. However, I do want to. Sorry, I'm going on here, but I do want to kind of. I don't know. Treat's probably not a good word, but I want to give you guys a little something. Mm-hmm. I want to go a bit out of the box here. I want to give you an example of horror in a game that I've played this year. This is a real recreation of an event that happened to me within this game. I will not be mentioning what the game is until the end.
Okay.
Setup, italicized text, big pretty box, fancy font.
It's a mystery. Sorry, go.
All right, so get your hot cocoa. So you and your party have been traveling through these lands for almost a week now. It's been profitable. Numerous members of the public have been showering you with gratitude for your endless generosity in helping them in their time of need. You feel good. The night is young, but you and your party are also exhausted from your adventures of daring do. Earlier, the archer in the group hit a perfect shot between the eyes of an ogre. It's an incredibly fragrant meat that you butchered from the animal, but you all need to eat to get your energy back for another day of helping the land, and one of you is particularly gifted at masking the scent. You have your meal and rest on the rocky knoll next to a windmill, long since been abandoned. You awaken suddenly, barely an hour of sleep in your eyes. A slow drum rolls from the hills that's unknown to your ears. You can't see anything. It's pitch black. Only the lights of the city miles away by the coast can be seen. You immediately pick up your lantern and open it to strike the wick. No oil. You meant to get some last time you were in the city, but you forgot, silly James. Then, in the dark, numerous crimson eyes reflect the light of the city miles away at your back. Then you smell what come next. But before you can react, torches light up around the craggy hill. 15 goblinoid creatures surround the party, scimitar, shield, and bow in hand. Your party is exhausted. With no power to their legs, their arms aren't quick enough to their weapons. The light from the goblins' torches barely lights up your surroundings, and before you know it, a roar comes through the dark. A figure 5 times your size rushes through the goblins, flattening them to get to the party that killed its mate. That smell is unmistakable. This was the end of that party. They were murdered in the night, miles away from home, forgotten. This game was Dragon's Dogma 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's pretty good. Okay.
And that happened all the time. And it was terrifying every time. Do you know how terrifying it is to wake up and then you just hear like the bats of wings above you and it's a griffin that just comes landing and just kills you all? It was good. That stuff I'd absolutely love. I didn't mind dying because it was like, I messed up. I didn't get that oil. I messed up. I didn't get meat. I messed up. I didn't, is always and just like survival horror. I mean, it's an epic fantasy, but had its little bits that it took from Resident Evil as it was made by Capcom, and I just love that. That image is always in my mind.
It's great you mentioned Dragon's Dogma 2 because you brought something to mind of, not so much the game itself being horror, but the players themselves are suffering and in fear because the second that the dragon's blood stuff was going around, every online community was terrified to death of like, oh god, my NPCs, my pawns are going to lay waste to villages. What do I do? What do I do?
Yeah.
It's like a pandemic. Oh my god.
It was fantastic. To me, like, we had a lot of folks in the server who, were complaining about it. I say a lot. There was like 3 people.
Yeah, but actually afraid to play the game for fear of an NPC killing.
And I was like, I was waiting for it to happen to me. I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool. I want to see what happens.
Yeah,
that's why you play games, right? You want to experience these things that happen.
I'm completely with you for that, and it's a game that I still haven't played, but I remember wanting to play it. But when I heard about that, it made me want to play it even more because that is like, it's the type of thing that games don't really do because they are so sort of locked in to do this one thing, and it is bold to put something like in a game, but I like that. I like bold. I like weirdness. I like stuff that.
The thing that kind of put me off, like with folks, is that it's kind of like with the note taking that VGC did.
Yeah,
it's like we see that in other games.
Yeah,
and Dragon's Dogma 2, it doesn't treat you well, but neither do other games.
Yeah.
Like, and if you prepare, then you will have a good time. But if you don't prepare, then you're gonna have a bad time, and that's what all games are. And you're meant to suffer, you're meant to fail, so then you can overcome that struggle, that challenge. I never understood it, so I was always coming to defense Dragon's Dogma 2, and I know it's kind of got snubbed this year, in my opinion. Actually, and it sold really well.
Yeah,
as well.
Could we argue that maybe the deal? I'm going off topic, guys. I'm sorry, but the fact that Shadow of the Erdtree is in the running for Game of the Year kind of irks me, and I love Souls games.
Yeah,
and people are going, well, it was a good game that was played this year, but there's plenty of other good games that have been played this year.
Yes.
And Dragon's Dogma, very much like James has said, could fit the bill entirely. Fantasy game with horror elements, very, very much requires player attention and foreplanning, forethought. Not entirely dissimilar to a Souls game, just completely snubbed.
Exactly,
buried.
Steve. That was always my defense. I was like, but we sit here and we, and we're going, oh yeah, I love dying 20 times to this one NPC boss. It's fantastic. And then another game from another company does, and it's like, oh, boo, this game's too hard.
I haven't got a leg to stand on. I'm playing Lies of P right now.
You have to. When I first got into Dark Souls, I remember, I don't know if it was you that told me this, James, or if somebody else. All they had to say to me was, you just need to understand that dying is part of the game. Because, you're I'm pretty sure it was. And because we're so kind of used to in games that, oh, do not die, it's something in other games that you don't want to do. So when it comes to something like the Souls games where it's like, no, dying is just a part of the thing and you have to accept that you're going to die and death isn't the end and all that kind of stuff. And once I knew that, it let me sort of appreciate what those games were. But I think if you're not prepared for something like that, and maybe lots of people who went into Dragon's Dogma weren't, because again, there is a lot of, with gaming these days and with streamer culture, people just play all the big stuff that comes out because it's what people are talking about, and then they get hit with a bold thing that they're not used to, and suddenly it's awful. It's like, no, it's not that it's awful, it's just different than what you're used to. So I do wonder if it's one of those things sometimes.
I have been saying to folks recently as well, I've always thought this, but I didn't really put it into words, but these games, Dragon's Dogma, Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, they're a different kind of puzzle game. The puzzle are the bosses.
Yeah.
Like, you are trying to figure out a puzzle, you're trying to overcome that puzzle. So you getting frustrated with it is you getting frustrated with yourself for not overcoming the puzzle.
Indeed.
So, just overcome the puzzle. I mean, that's my way of saying get good, but just Yeah, just overcome the puzzle.
Yeah, you're just a get good guy at the end of the day. But no, I completely agree, and that is the best way to put it. Before we move on to the next topic, Steve, is there anything else like for 2024? Just because you went first, any other highlights or anything you want to talk about? James has obviously mentioned some games that we haven't played. You did mention Signalis, which I'm so happy you're playing. Steve, I have not played yet, and I'm pretty sure you have. The Clock Tower remaster, or is it a remake?
It's a port.
It's a port, is it?
It's a port. It's a port with the soundtrack and animations. But you actually were taking me in the right direction, because I was going to answer your question with another question. Yeah. This year has been a little bit rife with not biggest AAA remasters and ports. For example, Clock Tower, Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. You know, I wonder what's next. Because we just had, like, not long before the recording, we had The Thing remastered come out, which is pretty well made, but it's still, not going to lie, a little bit clunky PS2 action horror game. You know, if it wasn't the Thing IP, I don't know how well it would be received even now. And I enjoy the game, but still. I wonder, what's the next, like, well that's like to be tapped? What's that little bit of nostalgia from when you were little that's maybe a horror-themed game? Not necessarily a horror-themed game, but they'll hopefully be brought back. Because I kind of feel like the smaller titles that are getting your Clock Towers and the like, people's demand for a Resident Evil Classic Collection, for example, it's kind of fun in a weird way to see what old thing is brought back, and we all go, yes, it was actually better in the olden days, theoretically.
It definitely was. It's one of those things where I think that applies to gaming so correctly sometimes, but you know, we are all old, and maybe we are. Just old and silly now.
Back then, we had knees.
Yeah.
Just going to put it out there. My pie in the sky, you know, my delusional crystal ball is saying maybe Capcom. And no, well, I don't know if Capcom could do it. I may have misspoke there, actually. Edit this. Right, okay, so I kind of really hope that Nintendo get off their arse and do something with the Eternal Darkness IP, because that is a really fantastic little Lovecraftian-themed horror game that's been languishing on the GameCube now for over almost 2 decades.
It's so weird to me that Nintendo, as the platform with, I suppose, the biggest library, seems to care the least about the stuff from the past. Because, like that you've just mentioned, and many of their other games, you know, not making them available or not revisiting old IP, apart from just recycling, you know, Zelda and Mario, etc. I just don't understand why they're sitting on this giant well of stuff that they have. And maybe that'll change in future, because, you know, they're one of the platform holders that are kind of still very much clinging to the old way of doing things. And I don't know how much longer that's going to work out from them. They've probably got one more generation of doing it. But again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will just continue to recycle. And but they're going to have to find ways to bring people like us back to their platform, and not just, you know, I suppose.
Here's Mario, here's Link.
Exactly, yeah, which, you know, we can debate the quality of the new games all day long, but I mean, yeah, it's just, it's odd to me that they're not touching on stuff like Eternal Darkness or, you know, anything in their huge archive of games that they just kind of leave untouched. And then now and again, they'll bring something to, you know, Nintendo Switch Online, and it's not even done properly, but, you know, maybe I'm asking too much.
So to dial it round then, Kels, any old yesteryear game you want to see as a miraculous sudden remaster?
Off the top of my head, I mean, we've kind of got all the ones that I would want, I think. And like, I'm happy that a lot of the games, old games I like, I actually can still play and don't need to be remastered, like from the 360 generation. But if I think further back, we've got the Resident Evil remakes, and we already, you know, we had the Resident Evil remaster. I just want, you know, that we shall not speak of, which you mentioned.
Which one? Because there's 2.
The original trilogy. I want that as a package. I want to be able to to boot that up on my console today, and I don't even really need them to do anything to it. But it's an area, it's a topic we've touched on this podcast so many times in the past, and it is weird that we don't have it. But I honestly can't think of anything else because I've got, all the franchises I love are either still easily accessible and play really well today, or are still pumping out games. To be honest with you, I've thought long and hard about it. I could probably dig up a few, but yeah, in terms of Resident Evil and Gears of War and Fallout and all this kind of stuff, it's happening. My favorite Metal Gear Solid game of all time is about to get a remake. I mean, I'm sort of eyeing that up with intrigue. I guess we'll see when it comes out. But yeah, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
James?
Parasite Eve and Dino Crisis.
Yeah.
Ooh, tasty choices.
Yeah.
Because Parasite Eve was the first survival horror game I ever played.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to play it again. Yeah. It was around... Actually, I can't say that because I think I played both of them, Dino Crisis and Parasite Eve, around the same time. I got them from Choices Videos and rented them out for our... we had a Friday family night in where we passed the pad around the family and we play Dino Crisis and Parasite Eve.
Love that.
And Silent Hill, the first Silent Hill, Tomb Raider, all the classics. So I'd love to see them again.
Great shout.
They're both charming choices, but you're both wrong. The answer was Nightmare Creatures. Anyway, moving on.
So, yeah, I mean, kind of connected to that, is there anything coming up, Steve, in terms of horror? I mean, or just broad gaming? We've tried to give this episode a bit of a horror slant, but in 2025, is there anything coming up that you're highly anticipating, or even anything that's not been announced yet that you'd love to see? Like I say, slightly connected to what you've touched on already, but is there anything coming up next year that you're excited for?
I don't know if it's next year, but I am looking forward to seeing the horror game that Hideo Kojima's cooking, OD. I feel like...
Oh, yeah.
I feel like if that comes out next year, that's going to be the one, because, although he wasn't the only person who made the Metal Gear games, he wasn't the only person who made the PT survival horror, masterpiece that inspired an entire generation.
Yeah.
The man can do visionary stuff, and he's obviously got people on side to help him. Kojima going directly for a horror-themed bent, I am down for that. I want to see what happens.
It's a good shout. That's probably going to be... isn't that going to be the Xbox cloud streaming technology one, potentially?
Potentially, but
yeah,
I just want to see it because it was Kojima and scary.
Yeah, like I've been playing Death Stranding recently, and my opinion on Kojima hasn't changed, which is like, yes, there is some awesome stuff in here, but God, somebody needs to rein this in sometimes. And I think we can like get so hung up on, yes, it is visionary and it is awesome, and maybe that covers some of the things that maybe aren't as good. But I don't know. I mean, he can do whatever he wants at the end of the day. I just I wish there wasn't as many cutscenes in Death Stranding that there are. I just want to play the game, But yeah, I am definitely excited about it as well, because I think when it comes to cloud technology, if you want to specifically make a project for it, then that's fine and good. I think of something like a Flight Simulator, which came out recently, and it had issues because the servers blew up because too many people wanted to play it. They have gone a route where they've decided to basically make the game a cloud streaming game, and I think that makes sense for something like that. If you think, I want to play a flight simulator game, I want to be able to fly anywhere in the world, and I want it to look really up to date and really high resolution, and if they're saying, well, okay, the laws of physics dictate that the only way to do that is via streaming, then cool, that's a great way to test out that technology and do that. Because if you want to just download the whole thing, that's going to come with restrictions like, okay, it's not going to be as it's not going to have the detail that you want. There's going to be certain sacrifices that have to be made. So if Kojima is looking at a horror game and thinking about what can be done in streaming, then I am interested to see what he's thinking about there, because it's like, surely you could basically just do whatever you want in a non-streaming game. So unless he wants to make a horror game where you can explore the entire world, I'm not sure what he's going for, but I am definitely intrigued. I also... Now, I think this game is out. The Quiet Place game, I think that came out very recently. I wanted to play that, but it's kind of come and gone like a wet fart, but I really love the film franchise, so I wanted to check that out. And also, do you remember we got those trailers for Blumhouse were developing like 6 indie games, 6 indie horror games? And I don't know if a couple of them are out or if some of them are still yet to come out, but I remember seeing the trailers for all of them.
I don't know about the rest.
Spotlight is out, okay, right. But then the others may be coming next year. Because I remember there being stuff there where it's like, that felt like people, again, being given almost free reign to create their own little dream, indie horror game, but with the support of a company like Blumhouse behind them. So I was definitely intrigued about those. James, is there anything coming up in future, horror or otherwise, that you're anticipating?
Yeah. So horror-wise, there's Silent Hill F.
They're making like 7 Silent Hill games, aren't they, at the moment?
That's the one I'm most excited for, though.
Yeah.
I half joke in the Discord that I think it's never happening.
Yeah.
Because we got that trailer, which was so good.
Yeah.
It made me desperate to experience the game. It was so incredible. But, I was hoping with the success of Silent Hill 2, they were like, okay, yeah, let's let the gates open and, let everybody know what we've been doing. But we've just heard nothing from the Neo babes at Neobards. Which is really sad because, it's a really cool. I love the theme and I was interested to see where it was going to go. But yeah, that's one I'm interested in. We don't know anything about it. Nothing about it. Anything else Silent Hill related, I'm not interested in because it all looks like guff. But sorry everybody. But 2 others. I mean, I already mentioned one, which is Path of Exile 2. It's going to be in minimum development for 6 months, but with the success of the early access, they sold over 1 million early access tickets, and they have last time I checked, over 500,000 concurrent players in early access, which is incredible. I can see it coming out probably on that 6th month mark or around there, so it could be a contender for Game of the Year, though I think Monster Hunter is probably going to get it. The final one is Avowed.
February. Because of coming out,
Yeah, in the same month as Monster Hunter. And it's so sad because this game has been delayed about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's been delayed several times because they've always put their release date around the time of another big release. And then they've probably had like a boardroom meeting and going, wait, we probably shouldn't release it now. We should probably it probably needs a little bit more cooking if we're going to try and compete. And then they do the February one, and then Monster Hunter Wilds gets a release. And I was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. But the reviews of that game that have been coming out have been spectacular.
Yeah.
People have just been saying it just feels like an older RPG, like just kind of brought up to date. And it's also in one of my favorite worlds. I love this world so much that I converted it into 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons and played several campaigns on it. Nice. The Living Lands. I'm very excited to dip into this world, and if I find time between Monster Hunter, because we're all going to be playing that too. So I don't know how my February's going to look at this point. But other than that, I can't. Oh, there was one. Was it Ill or ILL? Looked interesting. Which was a survival horror game. Yeah, I think it's ILL or Ill in capitals.
Has anyone played Mouthwashing that I keep seeing people talking about?
I just keep seeing clips of people cosplaying people from Mouthwashing.
Yeah, same. I keep meaning to give it a look, but I haven't got around to it either myself.
Basically, everyone I know that's played it has said this is like, a 2-hour indie game, one of the best story-driven things ever. And but go into it sort of unspoiled, and it's only on PC at the moment. I don't have a way to play it right now, but I was just wondering if either of you had, because I know that was one certainly for the Horror Game Awards that popped up in some of the nominations as well. I think that show. So I mentioned the Horror Game Awards at the top of this show. It's next week, Steve, 15th,
the 14th. Yeah,
14th of December, so that'll be live on YouTube for anyone that wants to watch it. The past couple of years, Steve and I have done like mini podcast episodes for it. That wasn't required this year, which is kind of another reason why we're doing this episode as well. But yeah,
we wanted
loads
to talk.
look forward to. What was that, Steve?
Because he wants to talk about horror games.
We did. There's been lots of good horror stuff this year. I mean, like, I could do a whole episode on Crow Country. I could do a whole episode on Still Wakes the Deep, and you know, it's a bit past its time now. But you know, and Alan Wake 2. You know, it's so funny that game is something I'm so obsessed with and have never really spoken about it at length. But I love that game as well.
It's frustrating, that particular one. It hurts because the game is fantastic. What Remedy did was fantastic. The DLC, okay, I wasn't really a big fan of the Night Spring stuff, but the Lake House was Lake House was pretty much A tier. You know,
the Lake House was fantastic. Like, Night Springs was just just go nuts with all these weapons and have a laugh, and it's like, that's cool. But yeah, the Lake House was like the teardown of AI and stuff like that. It was just chef's kiss. Like, I absolutely loved that.
The frustrating thing is that they still haven't broke even. Like, they've made a game that everyone loves. They've made impact in the industry, but still not broke even.
I think that's
one Game of the Year award.
That it doesn't help that they locked it to the Epic Store and it's not on Steam.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, maybe the game wouldn't exist. I mean, they have a lot of stuff. They have their fingers in a lot of pies. I don't think the franchise is going anywhere yet. They've got TV deals and stuff for Alan Wake and Control. Control 2 will be coming along. Yes, I think many of us love Remedy at First Aid Spray. But yeah, lots to look forward to. Now, before we wrap up today, we have mentioned Resident Evil. There is a new Resident Evil game coming. We only know this because the director has confirmed it. Is it the director, James? Steve?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the same guy who was in charge of RE7.
That's correct. Yeah, sorry, his name's escaping me. But I'm sure he mentioned that, you know, they wanted to get it right. It was going to be a big game, and this is why it's taking a bit longer to develop, but it is coming, and we don't know anything else about it. So what we're going to do today is keep it short and sweet, but we're going to theorize. Resident Evil whatever, is it a Resident Evil numbered edition? Is it going to have a subtitle? We don't know. Whatever is coming next for the next Resident Evil game, I want to get from the panel, myself included, a 3-word prediction about this game. And you can, you know, if you want to sort of riff off that as well and explain your reasoning behind your 3 words, that's fine. But I think it'd be fun to keep it to a 3-word headline, if you like. And Steve, we'll start with you. The next Resident Evil game that's coming, give me 3 words in terms of a prediction for that game.
Surprise the fandom.
Oh, okay.
I want something that genuinely, like, you know, I know we've had like various leakers and things posit various ideas. I want something that comes out of so far a left field, no one was expecting it.
That would be fabulous because, yes, I absolutely hate leak culture, and the more that is kept secret about this game, the better. James, 3-word prediction for the next Resident Evil game.
I'm going to give you a title.
Oh, okay.
Resident Evil Megalopolis.
And it's going to look like a perfume commercial, apparently.
Yeah, and it's just going to be Adam Driver consistently repeating the same line over and over and over again, with a really bad haircut. No, I would like to see us returning to a city again.
Yes,
like, you know, and not in the RE6 way. It was too big, and it expanded too much. I think we need to return. Like, they did really well with 7 and 8, with making it local, making it localized. Yeah. That's where Resident Evil works best. Yeah, so I would love, like, there being a big city. It feels like you're in a big world, but focus on, like, a big city, a big urban environment. Yeah. Focus on, like, localizing the characters, bringing the characters forward. Like, they've done such an excellent job doing that. Yeah, I would love that again. I would, because I think it would, you know, it would bring older fans in, like, back again, you know, who maybe got a little bit disenfranchised with 7 and 8. Yeah, because like, oh, we're back, baby, you know, kind of situation, and one of the main characters should die, at least.
Yeah, you've buried my lead a little bit, because my 3-word prediction is, I keep it simple, Leon Kennedy dies. I think it's time, like, you know, I hear the arguments against doing this all the time, but I think, look, we're past the point now. All the main heroes having this plot armor has kind of become egregious. And if we have the next game and we kill off Leon Kennedy, I feel Leon's going to be in it. That's my hunch because of the success of like Remake 4 and stuff like that. I think we have definitely not seen the last of Leon, but I think he should die. But that doesn't mean we can never see Leon again. We can still have flashback sequences. We could have a side quel or another spin-off that's set in a previous point in the timeline. We could remake Resident Evil Gaiden. This is something that killing off these main characters doesn't mean the end of them forever. But I think if you want to move the story in a way that is really going to surprise people, like Steve says, and affect us and make us care, I think it's time for a sacrifice to be made, because it's getting a bit everyone's invincible again and again. And, we're going to kill off a main character, but don't worry, they were only around for 2 games. So, yeah, that doesn't matter. I don't want to see that anymore. Cool.
It's the fake outs.
Yeah,
it's the fake outs that bothers me. Like RE Village was a fake out to me with Chris. Like the way that game was marketed, and then they did a double fake out within the actual game, and it's like, oh God, I'm in so much pain right now.
I'm excited either way. Our relationship with Resident Evil shall continue through the good and the bad and the ups and downs. But that's about it for today. Steve, anything else for 2024 before I sign us off here?
I have a cute baby and she is burping at me.
Yeah, that was a 2024 arrival. Yeah. James, anything else for 2024 before we wrap up?
It's been an interesting year, and I hope the years to come will fill us with terror and fear, but only in the video game world.
You just say fear and terror at me? Sorry.
I started playing Aliens Dark Descent as well, which I forgot to mention earlier.
So good.
Which that was like I had no idea how that game functioned, and then I started playing it and I was like, oh my God, yes. Because I want, I'm at that point where I just want to, where I am chilling out in the evenings, and it's like, I'm not playing any Twitch shooters really, and it's just, you mean I can? It feels like I'm playing an old school PC game, but in Alien, and yeah, just to sort of get cozy with that, as we've used that term a couple of times on the episode today. I've only done like the prologue and a bit of the first mission or whatever it is, but so far so good. Cool. Well, that about does it. Nothing else remains from me than to say thank you to our co-hosts today, James and Steve, and thank you to myself, I suppose. If you want to support the show, you can find us on Patreon at First Aid Spray, and there you can also get access to episodes a bit earlier and some bonus content. I'm sure this will be accessible to Patreons a bit earlier as well. We have a new logo and new branding, and we have loads of new merch available, so please do find the link on our website, faspraypod.com, and have a look for t-shirts, mugs, stickers, all that kind of stuff. Christmas is coming up. Find that special gift for yourself or a loved one. Until next time, in the words of our illustrious leader, have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.